package to this year's work. Together, this is 10 sites with 11 actual schools when we separate Shadelands and Sunrise. So the last 3 packages were moved up from what was going to be our Phase 3 program. I wanted to kind of put something together that brought all of these three proposals together for the board and give you something that you could look at really quickly. What I wanted to point out is, based on one of the board meetings, what we've done internally is we've gone to soliciting more vendors on the lease-leasebacks. We've also put this up on our public website. So we're doing more outreach with that. We're also doing some more mandatory walk, not mandatory walk, but walks with the contractors ahead of time. So just wanted to bring you up to speed on that. That way we're taking some internal controls and we're expanding how we're reaching out on the lease-leasebacks. So looking at this slide, we had the 3 packages that we brought in. Tabor Construction was submitted on 2 of the packages, and they were the low contractor on those 2 packages. On the 3rd package, Tabor had provided a qualification to their proposal. What they were saying is that we can do the proposal, but we can't during the summertime period. There's not enough resources for us to do that and be successful for the district. They said, however, if you're willing to wait until September, we would be willing to do the work at that time. So their proposal was qualified in what we look at, and based on that, we find the entire package would not be qualified to meet the district schedule. So we did not evaluate that beyond the proposal that they provided. Any questions on that process? When we received all our proposals this year, we looked at this, and I have some slides further down that will explain this a little bit farther, but we wanted to look at a way of evaluating all the proposals that were accurate and take a look at what we were looking at for some of the costs. So we moved to a per ton assessment. If you look at the first column is the number of tons that we'll be doing this year. The next column is the equipment package that was previously approved by the board, and that was approximately $6,100 per ton for equipment costs. The engineer's estimate was approximately $8,600 per ton for the entire project. The proposals that we received came in above that. Tabor was at $11,000 per ton, and Bell was at an average of $15,000 per ton. Again, the last column shows us the change from engineers, and then the last column is the difference between the 3 different proposals and the 2 different contractors. Are there any questions on this particular slide? Again, I wanted to, excuse me, we presented this type of information to the board before. What we wanted to give you is a quick rundown on what's included in our full budget, and I'll be talking a little bit more about the budget in a couple of slides that come. In our full budget, we consider that our actual construction costs, our change order contingency, our soft costs, our escalations, and some design and program contingencies. On this particular 3 groups of schools, when we add that all up, that comes out to $24.5 million approximately. The working budget, what we normally like to use, is consisting of the construction costs, the change order contingency, and our soft costs. So that's our day-to-day costs for managing the work during the summer. It also includes the architect, engineer, inspections, testing, and the testing lab. And for that, our working budget was $20 million. When we came in, the costs were higher than the engineer's estimates, so we took a look at what was creating this situation with the estimates being higher than the engineer. And we got some information from the engineer, but before we even got to that point, I wanted to point out that, excuse me, as a district, we had added some additional scope at some of these schools. We wanted to replace equipment that was in excess of 5 to 8 years or was becoming a problem for maintenance and operation. So we consulted with them. If the equipment was old, plan to have it replaced and put in the newest equipment, the VRF equipment that we're putting everywhere else. A couple of the big things that came into play is from the 2004 inventory that capital engineering did for us, there were some buildings in there that had split systems but did not meet the required air exchange. Those mostly occurred in the pod type buildings throughout the district. On this particular 3 packages, we had a few sites that had a lot of package units, or I'm sorry, a lot of pod buildings and the split systems. Primarily at Bancroft. Bancroft was almost all pods. We had some at Gregory Gardens, Valverde. So these were added scope to the engineer's budget and the district's budget. Apologize. Another thing that came into play is we're still under the increased sales tax, so our equipment costs went up slightly. Additionally, this year we've gone to a situation where we're putting the VRF on the roof. In a traditional sense, we normally have a rooftop gas-fired package unit that would feed most of your kindergarten classrooms. By going to the VRF system, we can take advantage of the efficiency of the VRF system, and we can move some of those same package units or units that were in the classroom up onto the roof. There's about a 1% increase for going to the rooftop VRF unit. The other thing that we talked about, and we talked about this with our consultants, and we talked about this with a number of people, and I'm definitely not going to be somebody to stand up here and say the economy's getting better, because I personally haven't seen it. When we looked at engineering news, they're saying that right now they're experiencing an escalation of approximately 2.8% nationwide from last year to this year. Some of the local indexes are showing that there's a increase in construction activity or planned construction activity in the Bay Area. We got one report that there's, for those that are interested, there's about 70 tower cranes that are currently on order throughout the Bay Area. That gives us an indication that there's a lot of construction planned in the very near future. The consultants are telling that this is resulting in higher costs with less labor resources. As we went through the downturn, a lot of labor disappeared from the Bay Area, so what we're having is labor shortages. From the contractors, they're telling us that they're seeing increased proposals in the area, mostly in the electrical contractors area, that the electrical contractors are running short of resources right now. A couple of quick quotes from the Oakland Tribune. They're saying that they're adding a lot of construction jobs, approximately 13,000 Bay Area wide, and in the East Bay approximately 4,800 jobs. And what the Oakland Tribune is reporting is that this is about a 10.1% increase in those resources. So we try to look at different factors that may be affecting the cost in bid for us. Any questions on this particular slide?
Did we lose anybody who's interested in doing work for us because of this increase? Suddenly there's more of a shortage in the labor market. Are we in jeopardy of losing potential bidders or people of interest?
There's always that potential. In the 10 people that we invited, some of these were very large mechanical contractors. We were hopeful to bring in some of the larger contractors that only do this type of work. We were told that there were other opportunities in San Francisco and in the South Bay that did not make it conducive to come over to the East Bay for us at this time.
That is the downside of an improving economy, and plus what I think you mentioned, which is important for us in a school district, is we like to try to do our work in the summer so that we don't disrupt the students and the staff, and that makes it, I know you were mentioning that we encountered that situation too. We have to work within a certain time frame for our kids.
We have a very excuse me, we have a very short construction time to do our work. That makes it very risky for even a large contractor to take on that work during that time period. There's the risk that they won't complete, and we have our liquidated damages clause that they know we intend to enact if they don't complete on time. But our goal is, excuse me, obviously our goal is to complete by the time the kids get back, or be to a point where when they do come back, they're not impacted on the day-to-day operations at the site.